ask about public safety and their stand on bail reform and if they'll support it and they'll stop the downloading costs for public safety and RCMP costs to municipalities. Talk about the housing and the need for an infrastructure program to support housing and water and wastewater projects to grow our own Manitoba economy. I think those are really two important things that municipalities, we need some kind of funding, right? Like at the end of the day, we're in budget season for municipalities. So everybody should be well aware and want to have these conversations and raise these issues with their local MP candidates, because now's the time, and it's a great opportunity for us to do that.
The countdown to Election Day is ticking by, and the party leaders are crisscrossing Eastern Canada in the early days of the 45th general election. Over the course of the federal campaign, we'll be speaking with municipal leaders from coast to coast to coast. What do municipalities want to see addressed in this pivotal election? That's exactly what we're here to find out on Municipal Affairs Canada Votes 2025. From housing to infrastructure, from bail reform to resource development, and from agriculture to social services, municipalities across Canada are tackling a wide range of challenges, but they can't do it alone. They need strong and reliable partnerships at the federal level to help build stronger, more resilient communities. And today we're heading to Manitoba, where at the time of dissolution, 7 seats in Manitoba were held by the Conservative Party of Canada, with 4 seats represented by the Liberal Party of Canada and 3 seats held by the New Democratic Party. Now, with 14 seats in play for any of the 3 major parties and polls extremely close in these early days, Manitoba's rural and urban seats could play a major factor in who forms the next government. And today, we're zeroing in on the needs of Manitoba's municipalities. What do they want to hear from party leaders and local candidates? What priorities are top of mind as they look to the next federal government? Now, we are honored to be joined by Kathy Valentino, president of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, who was first elected as AMM president in 2024. Valentino brings a wealth of experience and is a passionate voice for communities of all sizes across the province. She will share her perspective on what Manitoba municipalities need from federal leaders and what AMM is hoping to see as Canada inches closer to that April 28th election. So without further ado, let's go. President Valentino, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Mark Carney has called an election for April 28th. What is AMM hoping to hear from the party leaders over the next few days, few weeks, heading up until that April 28th election day?
Thanks very much for having me. And yes, this is exciting times. AMM's already developed a federal platform that we've been advocating on with the work of the board of directors and listening to municipalities. We did some advocacy days the first week of December. We reached out to all parties involved in Ottawa and kind of rolled out our platform. And the 3 highlights are responsive development, modernized funding model that we see needs to happen, and that includes core infrastructure investments and obviously public safety. And I think it's safe to say I can add the 4th one would be the strong leadership of the U.S. tariff trade war, President Trump, and Canada's sovereignty is obviously a big deal right now for Manitoba municipalities.
I want to start in kind of a different order than you just labeled them, but I want to start with public safety. Now, I know that Manitoba municipalities have been at the forefront of calling on the Canadian government, which was the Trudeau government, now the Carney government, to reform bail reform of the catch and release that has been going on in many of the Manitoba municipalities. Mayor Sherilyn Knox of Portage la Prairie and Mayor Fawcett of Brandon have been sort of Mayor Knox has been on the forefront, but Mayor Fawcett has put out a letter in support of Mayor Knox. Why is it important for the next government, the parties, to pledge to overhaul the bail system to ensure that we have safe communities?
AMM, this has been a lobby effort for a long time, and Manitoba has started this, and now it's escalated, and we're very supportive of Mayor Knox and how she's now taken it to the next level. And, you know, it's worth noting that all premiers as of last week, they've all signed on, so there is one letter now to the Prime Minister of the day asking for a change in bail reform in the criminal code. So I think it's important right now because we really have that opportunity with a federal election to make this a forefront of an election campaign, to try and make a change. because the catch and release system and the bail reform, it's just not working in communities, and communities are unsafe, and it's drawing resources. So, I mean, that's the one component of public safety that we feel is important at a federal level. But because it's Public Safety Canada, that in regards to the safety of our municipalities, there's also the downloaded costs that's incurring to municipalities in terms of the body worn cameras, and even the contract negotiating, how municipalities aren't at the table across Canada to have a say. And they promised that we were. Now we're going to go into the third round, and municipalities aren't at the table. So the downloading costs of public safety has to be addressed and needs to stop, quite frankly. And also, we need there to be a change with public safety, that policing needs to be for policing. All the mental health and support work that policing are doing is taking away from their day-to-day duties. So that's kind of our public safety platform. Isn't just bail reform. There's a few things that go underneath it that we feel are important at the Manitoba municipality level.
Now, you talked about how you recently went to Ottawa in December. Have you had conversations with the Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP about bail reform, about these challenges that municipalities are facing? And what did you get as the sense? Because we're in a completely different world than we were in December, because we now have a new prime minister, and we could have a potentially new prime minister as of April 29th. So do you get a sense that the party leaders and the party MPs are taking this issue seriously?
The opportunity for us, we did meet with all parties in different, I think in different like jobs that they hold, was to make the awareness start campaign of this, so that the message starts to be told and they start to hear the story. And now that it's escalated, let's say with bail reform, with with the letter from all the premiers, so it should make them now remember, oh yeah, they were already talking about that a couple of months ago. So I think part of advocating, and I appreciate that AMM took the lead of this in December, because it takes time to start those conversations and to build those relationships and to really tell your story of what you're advocating for. So I do believe that we started that storytelling, and they got the message, and they should now hear more of it as we get closer to the election and we amp up the advocacy for the election.
One of the other big areas that you talked about, and that is something that Canadians have no control over, and that is the tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs that Donald Trump is going to impose on Canadian goods as of April 2nd, which is about a week away from when we're recording this. Um, what impact would these tariffs, these reciprocal tariffs, whether it be from America into Canada or Canadian into America, what impact would they have on municipalities in the province of Manitoba?
Obviously, it would have a big impact. And I spoke about this before with opportunity to be in Washington, and nobody's going to win in this trade war. So it's going to impact in the United States, states that Manitoba has trade agreements with, and in Manitoba municipalities also. Manitoba municipalities, we kind of have everything with the critical minerals and the port and the transportation network and the agriculture. So we kind of have a lot going on, and there are a lot of trade agreements, and we're very clear at AMM that the municipalities that we are hearing from that are affected, we have those conversations with our government, because it's really them that we're following the lead with. It's our premier that has these trade agreements, not us. So we just want to continue giving the information that we're receiving from municipalities, and then the border towns, for one, is a concern. Some new investment opportunities that we're looking to maybe come to some municipalities maybe seems to have a little bit of a pause to right now. So those kind of things that are happening, we just continually relay the message to our government, because they have to take the lead on that.
What are you hoping to hear from local candidates and even the party leaders around this issue? Because you're right, municipalities don't have the levers to pull the strings to potentially change the way that Donald Trump or President Xi of China reacts to how federal government imposes tariffs. but you do have the ability to stand up and say something. What are you hoping to hear from the party leaders, from the local candidates to help put the municipalities in Manitoba a little bit at ease over the next few weeks, few months, potentially year, depending on how long these tariffs potentially last?
Yeah. So, for instance, one of the things we've heard is about municipalities, how can they change their procurement to just purchase in Canada? Sounds really easy, but there's a lot that goes behind to make that happen. So, some kind of communication or thoughts on that from candidates would be good for municipalities to hear that maybe that's an interest to them, or they want to work towards that. Another thing would be working towards the interprovincial barriers for trade that is taking place. We would want there to be willingness for those to lessen, or and a good communication to municipalities on how they're working towards that, and what are some of the topics that they're working on, and how quick can some of those trade barriers within our own country change, because that's an issue also for municipalities. I think that another thing, it might be a small thing, but it's big to many, is we talk about tourism. Our tourism sector, is probably on the other side of this. They expect it to be quite booming again, where everybody may be staying in Canada. So our own Canadian tourism, they probably need some support and some help. And how's that going to look for them? I mean, I know in Manitoba, our provincial budget on Thursday announced free parks for provincial parks for this coming year. So I think little things like that is low-hanging fruit, they say, but that's a good thing. And municipalities also need to hear some good things that might be able to help them ease a little bit of the unknowns for this next while, because with unknowns comes a lot of fear, and that's just not good that we have to live in that type of environment right now.
One of the big areas that I believe probably will be starting to be talked about over the next few days, few weeks, over the course of this campaign is housing. Housing seems to be a topic that a lot of people, a lot of party leaders have on their mouth, and municipalities at the forefront of that. There have been some targets put on municipalities' back saying development fees are too high, the red tape is too long. How do municipalities want to work with the next federal government to address the housing challenges? And what do you hope to hear from party leaders when it comes to building housing? And the critical piece here is building the infrastructure needed for that housing.
Yeah, that's under kind of our responsive development platform, the first of the three for our federal campaign or our federal advocacy. And we want it to be clear that municipalities aren't in the way of building housing, because you're right, housing is the buzzword across Canada and that means a lot of things. It means low income housing, it means transitional housing, it means affordable housing. Like, housing means different things for different municipalities. So municipalities aren't part of the problem here. And sometimes we feel that we're being painted in that picture with development fees and zoning and stuff. But we understand that the private sector is the one that builds the housing, but municipalities want to be a partner in that. And with that comes the need for the infrastructure to build the housing, which kind of goes right into our other part of our campaign. Is we can't build these housings, whatever kind of housing, types of housing in our municipalities, if we don't have the infrastructure to support it. So the federal government has to unveil a water and wastewater infrastructure program, because the deficit for these kind of projects is massive. In Manitoba alone, we have over 300 shovel-ready projects. I believe we're at about a $1.3 billion price tag. There are cities and towns in Manitoba that can't build these housing units because they're at capacity for water, wastewater. So they have to unveil some kind of an infrastructure program to support this, because we can't grow our economy and we can't build if we can't have water and wastewater infrastructure to support it. And when I talk about an infrastructure federal program, it cannot be a one-size-fits-all model, because that cookie-cutter approach is an unfair advantage to small, rural, remote Canada. There has to be different streams to it. The big cities, they can have their fair share of the pie, but the rural, remote, that has to have a different stream of funding, because per capita doesn't work. And these smaller municipalities cannot afford these huge infrastructure projects to build housing. So I think, like I said, housing means a lot of things.
Okay, so it's time to turn a little page and go into the political questions now, Kathy. And I want to make sure I do this correctly. You're right. The smaller municipalities are important. They're the ones who are dealing with it, and they don't have the population like the big cities, like Winnipeg, like Edmonton, like Calgary, like Saskatoon, like Regina. But I would be hard pressed to say, in the 20 years I've been covering politics, the federal leaders have never come to Thompson, Manitoba during an election, have never come to Steinbeck for an election. They go to Winnipeg, they go to all the major cities. How did the smaller municipalities get on the map when it comes to this federal election? Because if not now, when? Because the municipalities are struggling and municipalities need some type of funding and secure funding for these rural communities and rural urban communities, I say. But it doesn't seem like they want to go there because that's not where the seat population is. The seat populations are in those larger urban centers.
You're absolutely right on. And that's, that's how politics works, politics at its finest. And I mean, that's the way it is. So I think it takes a lot of hard work and it has to start at the local level. And we just did the 2 months of touring municipalities. And I said that. I said, we know that there's a federal election sometime on the horizon. Let's use this as an opportunity. Talk to your MP, talk to your MP candidates, tell them about what our needs are in Manitoba municipalities. That's where it has to start. And all we can do is try. And we have to have a strong voice and advocate and be creative. And I think that and not say that we know big cities are the biggest piece of the pie, but you can be creative and have a different level of stream of funding within your infrastructure program, because whatever government of the day is, they're going to have their own infrastructure program that they're going to unveil and they're going to own. So we want to at least to maybe have the opportunity to be at the table to address what that looks like, or to offer some kind of suggestions or what might work for municipalities. Because in the end, if they want to grow the economy and look good, then they need to listen that how small municipalities are just as important part of the puzzle to grow the economy overall.
While the party leaders won't be in these smaller communities, the local MP candidates will be. What should residents of Manitoba, what should Manitobans be asking their local candidates when the local candidate comes to the door when it comes to municipal challenges? Is there something that AMM is hoping that the local candidates hear from residents?
I think that we've been really trying to push our message, ask about public safety and their stand on bail reform, and if they'll support it and they'll stop the downloading costs for public safety and RCMP costs to municipalities. Talk about the housing and the need for an infrastructure program to support housing and water and wastewater projects to grow our own Manitoba economy. I think those are really, really two important things that municipalities, we need some kind of funding, right? Like at the end of the day, we're in budget season for municipalities. So everybody should be well aware and want to have these conversations and raise these issues with their local MP candidates, because now's the time and it's a great opportunity for us to do that.
Are you hopeful? Are you hopeful for the next federal government to address some of the concerns that we've chatted about in the last 15, 20 minutes?
I don't even know how to answer that because everything changes by the hour in this world today.
By the hour, by the 20, every 20 minutes, it seems like.
So we have to somehow be optimistic. I don't know if it's hopeful, but we have to be optimistic that whether it's our Team Manitoba approach or it's a Team Canada approach, that the government of the day is going to recognize all of us in Canada and work and listen and being open to what we all are asking for and what we all need to make Canada, a good, sovereign, strong country, because at the end of the day, that's really what we all want.
Kathy, always a pleasure to sit down with you. Thank you so much. As I'm assuming this is not the first, but this is not the last time we'll be chatting during this campaign. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs Canada Votes 2025. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights into the world of Manitoba municipalities and what they hope from the next federal government. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platforms or on YouTube and follow us on social media at Cross Border Network. To learn more about the people in the communities that we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs Canada Votes 2025 tomorrow at 10 o'clock.